Good morning. Welcome to a new episode of PNU Talks. My name is Izaak Calamlam, Bachelor of Science in Chemistry for Teachers, Batch 2009, PNU ITL Batch 2001, Chemistry Teacher and Academic Chair of the Special Health Sciences Senior High School of the De La Salle Medical and Health Sciences Institute. A lot of teachers and schools at the moment are very busy preparing their online and printed modules, video and audio recordings for the upcoming school year. But don't forget a key element in the teaching and learning process: assessment. Assessment can be for learning or off learning. But based on our experiences at the health sciences, it is the latter that we found more challenging in the online environment, specifically when shifting from traditional examinations to the online platform. Today, I'll be sharing with you the challenges we experienced in designing and administering examinations in a fully online setup and how we addressed each point we came across. To give you a background, the Special Health Sciences Senior High School of DLSM HSI, even though we've integrated blended learning through LMS since 2017-2018, we still experience a sudden shift to a full online setup during the majority of the second semester of 2019-2020 due to the pandemic. Well, we are literally in a hospital school, so to ensure students, teachers, and staff's safety without sacrificing the education of future frontliners, we decided to shift to home-based alternative learning modalities instead of canceling classes. But despite having the LMS, Canvas, for a number of school years already, why did we still find designing and conducting online examinations more challenging than the good old pen and paper test? Let us recall some of the general principles of educational assessment. First, assessment must be beneficial. It should be viewed as an integral part of the learning and teaching process rather than just a burden to learners and to teachers as well, especially the checking part. Assessment should instill deep and reflective learning rather than simply encouraging memorization of content knowledge or mechanical performance of tasks. Assessment must also be fair and ethical. It should not put any particular individual or group in an advantage or disadvantage. It should encompass the concept of accountability. Reliability and validity are also important. Assessment should accurately and consistently measure student achievement of learning outcomes in order for teachers and administrators to appropriately evaluate their students' academic progress. Assessment should be diverse and representative. It must encompass the complexity of the learning process. Thus, should also consider the learning experiences, not just the accomplishment of the learning outcomes. The procedures and criteria need to be available and clearly understood. An assessment must be both effective and practical to implement. And of course, all the information about the assessment should be secured. Now, in the school, I mean physically, or the physical school, the environment can be controlled to fulfill these principles. The challenge in an online exam is that we might have difficulty doing that. The most obvious one is online cheating. Students can easily coordinate with other students online And I say this, a lot easier. They can also turn over their LMS accounts to someone else, someone more knowledgeable who can answer for them. Also, being at home, they have access to their notes, books, or even browse the internet to fish for answers during the exam. During the exam itself, there can be computer and connection issues, causing critical disruptions for the students. The teachers also need to learn and relearn a lot of test-making principles and skills when shifting to the online platform. The same goes for administrators in formulating the policies catering to the online environment. Well, the list goes on, but how can we address such challenge? First, consider the following. The preparations for an online exam may actually take more time compared to traditional one, especially the first time. Consider providing the teachers training on how to construct exams in the LMS early on. Most of the time, we think of our examinations by the end of the quarter. Teachers, I would suggest that you start to formulate your exams together with your modules. Implement a backward approach. Also, don't forget to allot ample time for you to encode your items in the online platform. Trust me, it might take time to get used to. As much as possible, engage the parents or guardians in the child's education. Parents and guardians will have a great influence in this endeavor. Explain to them that taking assessments seriously and with all honesty and discipline, even at home, is a part of the teaching learning process, not merely to get good grades or awards. If possible, and if not much of a burden, parents should try to proctor their child's exam, or at least during the exam. Huwag po sana nilang tulungan magsagot, huwag po sana nilang konsentihin. Review the current assessment practices and, if possible, lower the impact of online tests. Objective tests like exams should be only one option considered among a wide variety of assessment methods. Diversify the assessments instead of just relying on a few high-stake exams. Students may have a higher chance of cheating if the stakes for them are too high, whether getting a much desired award or trying desperately not to fail the subject. In designing your exams, make a question bank or group instead of a fixed number of test items. Question banks can organize test items by any number of criteria, whether by topic, chapter, unit, question type, or difficulty level. The teacher can then create an assessment with randomly selected questions from the bank. The most effective use of question bank is when there is a large number of questions in a single group. Randomizing the questions and answers prevent the students from taking the exam together, then share or discuss questions while taking the exam online. Have a pool of questions so that students will not have the exact same exam. This will be quite demanding for teachers. In our school, we prepared triple the number of items to make the question bank. Also, see to it that you change at least 1/3 of the questions every time the subject is taught. Here, in our Canvas account, I extracted a portion wherein you can see what we meant by question group. So the question group in this case can be classified based on the topic, the difficulty level, then the system can simply randomly select or pick questions so that students will have different exams every time. Design the questions so that they are not all recall questions. Recall questions are very easy to look up using the browser, notes, or books while taking the exam. If a good portion of the exam has higher order questions such as application questions, then students will not be able to quickly search for the answer. They need to understand the material to answer the question. In our school, without an assurance that students will not refer to their notes or search for the answer, we designed our exam so that even with all the references available, the questions will still pose challenging enough for the students. Going back to the questions earlier, as you can see, instead of simply relying on recall questions, we opted to use application questions. So instead of simply asking, what is a Bronsted-Lowry base? This question will require more of an application of the content or the knowledge they know. Also, in Health Sciences Institute, as you can see, we also incorporate health sciences concepts in our subject. Mix objective and subjective questions. Include short answer or essays. Subjective question types demand a deeper understanding of the content from students. Mixing in these types may not prevent from sharing or may not prevent students from sharing their answers or information, but it may limit the effect on the student's final grade or score. Also, incorporate some subjective questions in your modules. This will not only practice your students' skill and confidence in answering such kind of questions, but you will also get a grasp of your students' personality or style, which can give you an idea whether the student is the one answering your exam. Be selective also in your assessment methods. As explained earlier, exam should only be one of the options from a wide variety of other assessment methods. Each type of assessment method may be designed to measure different indicators of student learning. I have extracted some sample items to prove our point. As you can see in the first problem, instead of simply relying on an objective type of question, we resorted to a summative type of question. So instead of simply asking for the structure of a certain compound, which a student can simply type in and search using Google or any search engine, why not include an explanation? For example, explain why the name 2-ethylpentane is wrong. Then draw its structure and give the correct name. So instead of simply asking for the structure, this one involves not only recall or application, but also some critical thinking and evaluation why the structure is wrong. Also, in the second question, as you can see, we also integrate other subjects in our questions. Students in the Health Sciences Institute, being a health sciences course, already has their healthcare and anatomy subjects. So why not use them in our questions? Wherein the integration can prove more of a critical thinking skills rather than simply a recall skill. Now that you have designed and finished your exam, what are some of the specific settings that you need to apply before you administer your exam? First, present the exam instructions or directions and policies before the exam. In the exam guidelines or policies, suggest that students should already be ready with their materials and work area before the exam period starts. And most importantly, secure a stable internet connection. I would also like to emphasize that even at home, the students should have a dedicated working or studying space. Present the exam instructions ahead of time, a day before perhaps, so that the students are already conditioned to take the exam right away, instead of taking time studying the mechanics of the exam and the LMS during the exam day itself. It is also good to practice doing online exams or tests regularly through practice formative exams and low-stake quizzes prior to taking the summative test. Set a stringent but still manageable and fair exam duration. Students will not have enough time to be searching for answers if the timing is only long enough for them to answer the question. Students who are adequately prepared to take the test are less likely to rely on open books or notes or search the internet as compared to those who are unprepared. Offer the online exam at one set time only so that the students in the class cannot form a team and take the exam sequentially. Show exam questions one at a time and do not allow backtracking of previous items. By not having all of the questions at once on screen, it makes taking screenshots of the exam more difficult. This will also discourage the students from finishing the exam early and then going back to questions and do a web search or review to find the answers. Well, backtracking is a really helpful feature in most LMS when doing practice quizzes or review, but not in graded exams. Be sure to disable this feature when doing graded exams. Limit the feedback displayed to students. Do not post the answer or scores right after the students submit the exam. The students might record the correct answer and share them with others. Be careful as most LMS have the provide feedback or see the correct answer feature for formative and review purposes. So be cautious to disable this feature when doing graded exams. Students should only be allowed to access the exam and questions once. This is difficult since a student may claim that the exam crashed in the middle of taking it. Include in the exam policies that a student should document the problem he or she encountered in order to be approved to retake the exam or have a special exam. If a student really experienced the technical problem, see how long he or she spent in the exam and which questions have already been answered. This feature is available in most LMS. Then open the exam again, but give them a new time limit and set of questions. Teachers are also recommended to prepare a separate new exam with different items to serve as an alternative for students who encounter technical problems. As you can see here in our LMS, You can randomize the questions or answers. You can set a stringent but manageable and fair time limit. Make sure to disable multiple attempts. Do not let the students see the feedback of the exam. And of course, it is best that you show one question at a time and do not allow backtracking of previously answered items. Now, I believe that even with our unique school setting this coming school year, and with the advancements in online technologies, examinations are still one of the most valid, reliable, practical, diverse, fair, and beneficial form of assessment. And this will stay in our curricula even in the non-face-to-face setup. We teachers need to adapt our examination practices, policies, and methods to the new normal of schools. Hopefully, these challenges we experienced and the measures we took, although they are not perfect, in designing and administering online exams helped you out in preparing yours. You may give your comments and inquiries at the comment section. Please do not forget to like and share today's episode of PNU Talks. Again, this is Jose Isaak. Dahil kay Inang Pamantasan, ang pagkatuto ay walang hanggan. Thank you, stay safe,